welcome everybody to episode 87 of Puppet Masters and Castle Freaks, the internet's leading all things Charles Band podcast. I am one of your hosts, Jared Hornbeck, the Demon Doll with the Killer Touch. And I'm wondering, is there a widow playmate who can come out and play with me? Who's here with me?
Oh, God, I hated that so much.
You're welcome.
I'm Steve Guntley, still country as fuck. And this is the podcast about falling anvils, clown murders, and Full Moon's tiny terrors, now available at fullmoon.com or wherever you get your toys. That's because this is the podcast about the 12 Slays of Christmas and Demonic Toys, Jack Attack, two recent short full moon movies that should, hopefully, get you all primed up for the holiday season. That's right.
Yeah, isn't it exciting? It's Christmas. It's Christmas this week, guys. Isn't that exciting?
It is Christmas.
You guys
week.
In the Christmas spirit? I mean, certainly in no way are we recording this around Halloween. I mean, it's
no
Christmas.
Way. No, it's certainly Christmassy. And of course, we have the Christmassiest guest that we could find, the long overdue guest joining us here today. Who is with us today, Jared?
We sure do. So this person who is joining us is self-proclaimed, self-professed lover of Christmas and Christmas media. He has podcasted with Steve and myself a number of times. I don't know if you've ever listened to any of the other stuff that we've guested on, but there's a good chance that you've heard him. He is one of the co-founders and co-hosts of the wonderful Laser Time Pop Culture Network and flagship podcast. You go back and listen to some of those episodes. They were amazing. But more recently, co-host of 30-2010 and the horror offshoot of that show, Elm Street Nightmare, which Steve and myself appear on quite often. It is the one and only Chris Antista, podcasting OG, man. Been doing it forever. And finally, Chris, you're here. What's going on?
What's up, man? I'm so glad to finally be here and on your show rather than vice versa.
Well,
absolutely.
We appreciate you being here, and we appreciate you taking on the assignments that we foisted upon you, because these are, these pose some interesting challenges for us. I think when we saw 12 Slays of Christmas was coming up, we got excited because it's like, yes, Christmas media, something we are kind of lacking on this show. Mm-hmm. But as we will get into, there's not a whole lot of there. So we can
I disagree.
Talk about that.
I love it.
But what is your kind of experience with sort of full moon movies, Charles Band movies, just low budget films in general? Do you are you Chris, a similar video store dork like us?
We have to. I mean, you and I and Steve and all of us have had these kind of horror conversations because we've focused on some of the franchises on Elm Street Nightmare. So I know your love for horror and stuff goes back a while. So let's hear, when you first sort of caught the bug for all of this, and then did it lead directly to discovering Charles Band movies? Because for some people it starts young, for some people it doesn't, and because you have yet to be on our show till now, we haven't really had the chance to talk about this.
Because I know I'm a broken record. I've told you we're all kind of the same age, and we have a lot of similar stories, and I just love how much it's tied into my age in video. And I'm sure you've had guests say this before, but like, I never ever tied in that Full Moon was like a singular entity. I had seen so many of these and I understood their vibe, and I'm 11 and I don't tie it into the idea that this is like a singular company. They definitely have a running theme here. And what I love most about my history, it does start with Demonic Toys, and a lot. And Demonic Toys, because I think I'd maybe seen the VHS, and we talk about that all the time on our show. Like the video store, holy Lord, was the video store kinder to any other company other than Full Moon?
Oh yeah,
and so I'd seen that, but I was also somewhere between poor and parents don't want to pay a lot for we could rent like one movie a week. When cable would have a free preview of something, I would spend every cent I had or clear tapes and get like as many blank VHS as I could, and do that thing where you record the 6-hour version so you get really the most horrendous quality you can get.
SLP, baby.
Yeah, and I'd pour through that. This is making me feel so old. That free TV guide that would come in your newspaper. I had a Leonard Maltin movie book that I would cross-check. here's all the good stuff. But I was also a budding horror fan. Freddy was kind of my gateway when I was maybe a little too young.
Chris, I'm going to stop you for a second because you're saying how, maybe we've encountered this kind of story before, maybe we haven't.
Yeah.
You're hitting all the spots on our
Right.
Puppet Masters Castle Freaks bingo card, man.
Yeah, Freddy influence,
Leonard Maltin
kid
book.
hanging out in the video store, Leonard Maltin book. Yeah, all
Freddy's
that.
it just, I don't know. That is my vibe, because like if it's a non-supernatural horror movie and there's a little too much gore, I don't know. That's not true, because Terrifier was really fun, but that's pretty supernatural. But like that's my vibe, and it's also animation, and for Christmas, stop motion, which there's plenty of in Demonic Toys. And I just remember seeing this, like, I've always wanted to see this movie, and then I checked the really, really important thing that's coming up in my life. I'm a little horror fan. I am also a fan of nudity. And this movie has nudity. So so for me, it was a mad dash to record this and not get caught. We don't have an automatic video recorder. So I remember in order to get Demonic Toys, I had to start recording. It came on at like 4 a.m. on a free preview of Showtime or Cinemax. I had to start recording the whole channel. And I didn't do this a lot, and then make sure the last 2 hours of the video caught Demonic Toys. I'll record over the front of the tape later. So the tape may have existed with like Karate Kid and The Godfather in front of it, and then boom, Demonic Toys.
Right.
Just as God intended.
And so I ended up watching Demonic Toys dozens of times, and as I would like go through puberty in that same year, I have on demand. The only way I had on demand tibbies, as the ladies like them called, was through a single scene in Demonic Toys. And I went back and watched it this weekend, which I hadn't done in like I've done once in 30 years, and I am shocked by how much I remember the scene around the VHS boobies, and not as much for everything else, to prove that I'm an awful person. And I also want to give a shout out to Laser Blast. Because, Laser Blast, I think on my show, I can't stop talking about Mystery Science Theater 3000, and that's one of my favorite shows ever. And Jared, I don't know how into the show you are, but that's Mystery Science's last episode. So when you were able to get that on tape and cry and watch that over and over again, because there's never going to be any more. Just saying, MST3 cans. If you feel that way right now, the show's over. There'll never be another one. That's how we felt 3-4 times already.
Yeah, that's happened to us many a time. It's never going to properly die, which is for the best.
And Laser Blast is one of the best MST movies they've ever shown, with like actors you recognize, really, really great effects, and stop motion, which I consider now. I want to say I consider it synonymous with Christmas, because the Rudolph specials. But I went out for Halloween with a friend, and 2 of their 3 kids dressed up inadvertently like stop motion characters, Jack Skellington and Coraline.
Oh yeah.
So I feel like the holidays in general is the thing keeping stop motion kind of in the hearts and minds of everyone, generation after generation. And both these movies have it.
That is an interesting shift, because I think like Paranorman is another one too. Or now I think of stop motion kind of primarily as a Halloween thing. So that's an interesting shift.
Yeah, it was just an anecdote I can't tell anywhere else. I was like, both of you are dressed like stop motion characters. They're 5, and like what? Just long stare. I'm like, claymation, and they're like, oh, they still call it claymation, not caring if they get sued by Will Vinton, creator of the California Raisins, because that is his trademark. Stop motion, kids, is what you call it. And I did all that pedantic shit right in their face.
Yeah, I would have yelled it right in their little dumb faces.
Well, take a piece of candy every time you say claymation.
It's an interesting point, because doing this show, I mean, we've grown such an appreciation for David Allen and his stop motion work in a lot of the movies we talked about. And he worked primarily on Laser Blast, a really early one he did with Charles Band, and I did other stuff too, but really kind of known for his stop motion work in Charles Band stuff. But honestly, like you said before, Chris, where you experienced some of these movies but didn't really have a concept of Full Moon as a company, I was kind of the same way, where it's like I knew these movies existed, but I didn't put together that they were all coming kind of from the same source. And I think the same thing, like if you would have asked me about stop motion before we were doing this show, my brain would have went to Rankin Bass.
Oh yeah.
And it would have been that, but it doesn't anymore now. Now it goes to, I mean, I think of obviously Harryhausen stuff too, but the Christmas stuff is probably where I would have went first.
Yeah.
But still, in terms of prolific output, like Full Moon, and I didn't realize that until the movie we watched. Like how often they employed that technique and how synonymous with the studio that it is. Rankin Bass made The Hobbit and some other, and Frosty the Snowman, but they're going to be known forever as the stop motion people. I wonder when the dust settles on Full Moon, they might be the stop motion horror people because they've been using it a lot longer. I remember I reached out to you guys. What's that the new movie, new air quotes, Full Moon movie with like
Primevals?
Yeah, dude, that looks so cool.
Yeah.
Coming soon, guys.
Coming soon. But let's jump into the first of our movies here, because I'll have a few more points to bring up about branding after we get into this movie. But
my other transition from MST3K was, you've seen the show. How do you have time? You're cutting the movie apart to air over 90 minutes, and there's a 30-minute industrial short in the front. Who makes a 1-hour movie? Oh,
that is a lot of the complaints of filmmakers who have had their movies appear on MST3Ks, that like they some claim that their movies have been butchered a little bit to be worse than they are. Yeah.
Which
is possible, but I don't think they're ever starting from a movie of like extremely high quality and ruining it.
They say that, and then you watch.
You're gonna talk about Soul Taker?
Just watch Robot Holocaust.
Yeah, Robot Holocaust is pretty faithful. Yeah.
Soul Taker, I wasn't going to bring it up, but now that you said it, Soul Taker is one where
pretty good.
There's some it's a pretty good low budget movie, and there's some integral stuff to the flow of the plot that's taken out for time in that one, which makes it seem a little less comprehensible than I think the full movie is. But we're talking about 1-hour movies. Let's talk about a 41-minute movie, 43 if you count the 2023 edition, which is just an ad put into the front of it.
Expanded slightly.
I was wondering, because Jared's like, don't get confused with the other 12 Slaves of Christmas. I'm like, what do you mean the other? There are 2 full moon ones. So that's all the 2023 edition is?
There's another movie called 12 Slaves of Christmas, which is a feature-length movie, which is not connected to Full Moon, but is available to stream on the Full Moon app.
Oh, wow.
So I wanted to make sure that we were all on the same page.
Needlessly confusing. Well, I'm assuming I watched the right one because I watched
41 minutes and an ad.
It sure was.
Well, you did the right one.
This is 12 Slaves of Christmas. It was released December 21st, 2022. It's directed and written by Billy Butler, and it stars Tom Fitzpatrick, Lauren Nicole Smith, Dare Taylor, and Cody Renee Smith. Now, this is truly a 41-minute commercial for the Full Moon toy line, the Tiny Terrors toy line that was launching around the time of this movie. These are basically just collectible blind pack minifigs.
Wow, I read that in the description, and I just glossed over that. Oh, it said Capital Toonie Terrors. That is a NECA's toy line?
I forget who's doing the toy line or who's producing it, but it is, it's just little collectible minifigures, just like
it's I don't want to say Amiibo or like Disney Infinity.
They look like Amiibo,
But it's not necessarily that they're cute, it's that they make every horror character look uniform, even if they're from separate companies. But I think it's really neat if you want a Nadia from What We Do in the Shadows, Michael Myers, to look like they're all hanging out in the same animator studio. It's kind of neat.
Well, it's the Funko Pop model in a way, It's like, we're smoothing it out and we're kind of making everybody look like this. So the basic outline of this movie is that 3 girls show up at it's supposed to be a decrepit mansion, but this is bright and colorful and extremely well decorated. And the creepy old man host has been nothing but polite to them. He's telling them stories and giving them gifts. Yeah. What's the problem? He just looks like Dan Aykroyd in Nothing But Trouble. It's not a problem.
Dan Aykroyd,
Chris Elliott in Scary Movie 2.
That might be closer.
Nailed it.
But I wasn't sure what to expect going into this movie. I know, like we had talked about it, and if you listen to our last episode, we're agonizing a little bit about what movies we were actually going to cover this week, because we had to figure out a little bit. It's like, all right, this is not enough meat on the bone to fill a full episode, even for prolific talkers such as ourselves. I think it's not enough there. So we did decide to pair it with another movie that is kind of tangentially related, because if you watch this thing, it is not 12 short films like made by like scrappy little scrappy people like making Christmas themed short films.
Man, do you know how
This is
short they'd have to be to fit into 40 minutes? 12
you know,
short films. Holy
you
Lord.
could do it. You could do this as kind of like a contest or something, and everybody submits their own little scary Christmas short films that have to be under 2 minutes.
Well, I
This
took
is not
this
that.
thing at face value, and I never even really approached thinking about it that way. But now I'm thinking of like, well, what would have happened if there was a 12 Slaves of Christmas that was that, which was sort of like a Christmas themed dungeon master.
Yeah. I think that's kind of what I was expecting. And instead, what we get is a clip package of older full moon movies, not even necessarily like the heavy hitters. We get a couple of different puppet masters. We get a couple of we get the first clip we see is from Jack Attack, which is the next movie that we're going to be covering on this episode, which kind of works out well enough. But basically, this is just a way of going through. Here are the 11 different figurines that are launching with the Tiny Terrors like initial box set. We're going to open each of them, put them on the shelf, tell a dumb little rhyme, and then show a very brief clip of the movie, of one of the relevant movies. And then we move on. And of course, we get a nice little trick or treat style twist at the end of the movie where the 12th sleigh is not the creepy old man killing the young girls, but it's in fact the young girls turning into monsters and killing the creepy old man.
They're demons.
What a twist. But like, it didn't even give me 12 sleigh. I guess it gave me a sleigh. I don't know. Like, did they show a sleigh and everyone? I don't know. Who cares? But I mean, even for Charles Band, who is the most shameless of shameless hucksters, this is some of the most crass like self-promotion. To call this a movie at all is so misleading.
No, I mean, yeah, it's just, it's a bunch of old movie clips with some like Hallmark Channel wraparound footage thrown in for most of it.
This is the only reason I'm here.
Yes.
This is actually a wonderful holiday gift, synonymous with something incredible that happened every Christmas back in the old media days that I would guess Band himself grew up seeing.
I should throw this in real quick. Chris, for a long time, you ran a blog where you reviewed Christmas specials. So you've seen like damn near every Christmas special that's ever been produced.
Yeah, and I have a real high tolerance for Christmas entertainment. I should say that. I've even branched out into some Hallmarkery, but it's also simple to describe. I am into animation.
Yeah.
I am into stop motion. And then it just occurred to me one year, probably not unlike you guys in Halloween and your listeners, it's the one time a year everybody's into what I'm into.
Yeah.
Like now all of a sudden, for once a year, people care about stop motion entertainment and Christmas, and through Nightmare Before Christmas, through all these other specials. Halloween is when everybody's a horror fan, or at least tries to be. And that's what I was all about on Christmas. But again, if you're a kid without cable back in the day, you might remember these Disney compilation features that aired from before I was born, and you could call them crass too. And a Disney Christmas Gift, Snowed In at the House of Mouse. If you see From All of Us to All of You, it actually has horror vibes now, because what they do, they'll show like clips of Peter Pan, an old Donald Duck cartoon that takes place in the snow, a clip from a live action movie. They don't give a shit. They are just chopping up their old pieces of entertainment, but really giving you, in hindsight, a decent overview of their output as a company. And if you were to catch something like that, you would get curious about multiple things, which now I am, because I'd seen some of the movies showcased here, but not all of them. And I love how they treated everybody as like you're seeing a highlight reel of all these characters. So for me, I love putting that. If you see a Disney Christmas Gift was even released on VHS. Because it was popular enough.
I think that might have been the one we had when I was growing up, but I can't remember.
There's one of them has this horror vibe because the interstitials, they film antique Disney toys. And I don't know what to call this. The narration is multiple men and women speaking at the same time, overlapped on each other. From all of us to all of you, vibrating and echoed and weird, and I hate it so much. It scared me as a kid and it scares me now. That I don't know if this is knowingly aping that, but it gave me those vibes nonetheless.
Chris, I'll ask you, because you'll know as well as anyone, but were some of these things you're talking about, were they stuff they would show on like Magical World of Disney?
Exactly. Free stuff for poor kids, like your one cartoon you could see on a Sunday evening. before The Simpsons came out, for years was the magical world of Disney. And I love that. I think still to this day, in certain Disney lore, the Disney company refuses to air many of its movies on television. Disney was like, you get Alice in Wonderland and Dumbo. I don't know why he highlighted those two, but he said you can show those on television, none of the others. And so you get clips. So if you didn't have the VHSs or you didn't have a chance, let alone to see them in theaters, which is how those movies were re-released and kept in the zeitgeist for almost 70 years.
Yeah.
They'd have to be as part of a compilation, and Christmas was a really easy way for the company to do that. And they made, I can think of at least half a dozen. And I, not unlike Demonic Toys, I'd tape them and watch them over and over again because affording and obtaining those things separately was impossible. But I don't have your job. I don't get to see all these movies. And now it's just like, why haven't I seen all these movies?
So did you feel like your appetite was whetted to watch some of these by watching the clips that we saw? Okay, all right, that's good. Maybe for me, like, since I've seen all of these like already, and I'm just kind of like,
how you would feel cheated.
Yeah.
You can skip them, you know.
I just want to mention one thing, like Chris, you were talking about how some of the interstitials on these Disney things skewed horror. And I do feel like there is sort of an inherent easy way to turn Christmas iconography horrific because inherently, I mean, this isn't necessarily Disney, but I was just thinking back to like myself personally, grew up watching horror, you know, loved Freddy, loved Jason, Leatherface, Michael Myers, all that stuff. It didn't really scare me. I was kind of just into it, loved the aesthetic. I always found like March of the Wooden Soldiers or Babes in Toyland to be really off-putting.
Yes, it's awful.
Yeah.
And something about figures like this coming to life. And there's a really fun little thing with the soldiers coming to life in Stuart Gordon's Dolls.
Yeah.
Which gave me those kind of vibes too. But Chris, you're mentioning how, sorry, go ahead. I want
to place maybe your age here because we had this discussion around Halloween because for a lot of people, the Disney Sleepy Hollow sequence is super popular with people.
Yeah.
When you think of that, do you think of the entire movie that is front loaded? The movie is called Ichabod and The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad because Disney is blah, 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 almost going out of business, can barely make a full length movie. They have a 1 hour movie with 2 segments.
Yeah.
Obviously you don't remember the Mr. Toad part. You remember, if you're a horror fan, you remember the Sleepy Hollow part. Do you remember the whole thing or do you remember the Headless Horseman chase? And it's because Disney lopped it off, cropped it, and stuck it in compilation packages and has shown it for years before they started streaming.
Well, this is
you forget there's the whole thing with like the beefy, like romantic rival thing.
Exactly.
Like you forget about that entirely.
This guy sure is horny for food. Like you might not remember that because people our age, you might have seen that in a compilation package, not unlike 12 Slaves of Christmas.
Yeah.
So I wasn't so bothered by it. I thought, like, if anything, this is where we get a little more crass and commercial. I really, watching it, did not know it was marketing a line of figures. It was in the IMDb description.
Yeah, it's there, and they're prominently featured on the poster. I think one bit of value that we can bring to this episode in particular is by talking about some of these clip packages, because this has been a pretty major part of the Full Moon like canon for the last like 15 years or so, which is just Charles Band re-editing a lot of his movies together into kind of thematically appropriate clip shows. So like it started, I think, with Famous TNA, right? That's like the early one where it's just showing, you know, the nude scenes and the gore scenes from some of their earlier like Empire movies. And we keep going with that. Like there's a whole section for like killer dolls and a whole section for vampires where you're taking little bits of different subspecies movies and other things and kind of slamming them together. It makes researching this show a little bit of a hassle sometimes because if you're looking to find out what this person directed, they'll appear in like 17 of these like little clip show things because they have to be credited for work they did back in the 80s, you know, so it's hard to kind of pin down what people are up to. But yeah, this is a major part of the Full Moon canon, which like I think for kind of obvious reasons, we're not really going to be covering much on this show since we're already talking about those movies at full length. But it is something that they do. What
should maybe warm your heart, and I'm not sure how this works because I watched this on Tubi, which contained a lot of the movies that were featured in 12 Slaves of Christmas, but were this to air on over the air 20, 30 years ago, this is how someone gets into Full Moon.
Yeah.
This could create a fan.
YouTube obviously has made clip compilations. That is totally not a thing we do anymore.
No.
I mean, don't judge me. We'll see when we see I don't know what the 50th anniversary of SNL is going to do because they are usually a big giant showcase of clip packages.
Yeah.
But I remember even they've said like they don't do a lot of recurring sketches anymore because YouTube has made that unnecessary. You can revisit these characters and formula anytime you want. I don't know how you would discover this other than it has a cool cover and beautiful Christmas imagery. And for someone who I'm very lightly dipping my foot in the Hallmark world.
Those are some rough waters, man.
Yeah,
so
they are. But what's really they have no qualms about using AI. They're like the only company I've seen that like we will use AI generated. Like this is an impossible lighthouse town. Oh my god, it looks so perfect. It's grotesque.
Yeah, they're not all about artistic integrity over there.
Is that what the opening of this movie was, or because it looked gorgeous, if not maybe taken from a stock site?
I mean, this is 2022, so I don't know if AI was being iterated to quite that level yet.
Definitely
Maybe
last year.
Like that's one of those technologies that has like grown to terrifying degrees in short amounts of time. So like 2 years ago, AI would be pretty noticeable compared to like 2024 AI.
You tell me that opening, that driving sequence through the snow and the trees, that's all CG. That's kind of an expensive shot. Is that something Full Moon typically ponies up for?
No, but in a situation like this where they only have to shoot 15 minutes of interstitial stuff, they can probably put some of the budget towards that. I want to say one quick thing. I don't want to have it go off too much further on a tangent, but we're talking about clip packages being put together, and it figures in with Disney also. When I was young, there was a thing, and Chris, you're definitely going to know about this. Steve, you may or may not. There was a thing that they did on MTV called DTV, where they took clips from kind of Halloween-y horror-related moments from Disney movies and played them
on the Disney Channel.
Yeah, and had them put to music. And so there was one from the Evil Queen from Snow White put to Evil Woman by Electric Light Orchestra.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think they kept the
they had Madonna songs in that, which I found shocking at the time.
They kept the Modest Mussorgsky Bald Mountain, from Fantasia, and left that as is, I believe, or maybe put it on something else. But the point that I'm making with that is that was released then in clamshell VHS.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
And it was probably sometime around 86, 87, I would say.
Good.
And I feel like that was my entryway to some of those things, was like, oh, I watched this clip from this like animated Disney short that I wouldn't really have seen any other way. And then
your listeners are going to hate me. I got the funniest thing I pound for pound on television that ever aired is the Conan O'Brien 10th anniversary special.
Oh, okay. You've got the DVD with the Triumph
DVD,
dog. Yeah.
Which the best of Triumph the Insult Comic Dog. There was no YouTube. If you wanted to enjoy Conan, this is the only home video thing that ever existed. The 10th anniversary special. I think it's mostly on YouTube now, but you would be disappointed because it's largely a compilation of clips. I mean, there's a live element to it that's also really funny with special guests, but it could be such a gateway to loving Conan O'Brien in that universe. I hope this is found like that. It has a very interesting poster. I don't know how you surface that if you're a responsible company like Tubi. I want to watch A Christmas Story. Well, we have this.
I appreciate you coming in with this perspective, because I think I was feeling very cynical about this thing, and that like, oh, it's work, it's an advertisement. You
had to redo your work watching an ad for toys. You should be pissed. Consider children.
Steve and I are often a hive mind when it comes to these things often. And this is going to be one of the areas where, and I'm not even big on Christmas media. I don't consume that much of it or have as much of a tolerance as you do, Chris, for it. But you know what? I really liked this. I thought this is the way, like some of these movies, like this is probably the most efficient way to consume them. And so don't get me wrong. There's flaws and there are qualms that I have with it, but I totally appreciated it for what it was as a way to, it is a shameless advertisement to sell toys. It starts with the ad for these Tiny Terror figures beforehand. But I think when you take that into account and you look at the way it's packaged. It's not really doing anything that creative or interesting or original, but I found all of the little interstitials of the movie clips welcome. And I don't say this very often. I wish this was longer. I honestly wish that they dipped their toe into some of the because like Steve said, it's not all heavy hitters, but there are a lot of full moon movies that we've watched where we're like, oh, this is a really nice surprise. So like, why not have like one of the Blood Dolls in there and show a clip from Blood Dolls? There were other wells they could have went to for this, and they could have stretched this thing out so that it was 60 minutes. And it could have been just again an hour long.
I haven't seen Ginger Dead Man. Now
but that's the beauty of this is that you don't have to, because they showed one funny clip from Ginger Dead Man 2, Passion of the Crust,
which is the better one. Yeah.
and now you saw that, and that basically should take care of having to go see the Ginger Dead Man. So probably this is the best place to kind of get back more into like what exactly the terrors are that they highlight in this one. But I had fun with this. I mean, I knew what it was, and knowing what it was and going in, there was sort of like, okay, which one's going to be next? I really didn't care a whole lot about the interstitials, except for, and this is a weird thing, and I don't know if this was intentional for some reason and I missed something, or if this was just sort of a continuity thing and they couldn't really care enough to fix it. So when it starts with the three girls arriving, and there's some scenes of them kind of just wandering around the house and picking up, noticing there's a pile of presents and talking, expositioning out loud about how there's a tow truck that they're waiting to come and all that, and then picking up food off the table and stuff like that for this. And it's like, okay, I get what they're doing here. I get what's happening. But the Lauren Nicole Smith, who plays Christine, the actress, she is kind of the first one who's presented as maybe the leader of the three of them, or at least the most sort of like responsible and put together of the three of them, who recognizes we shouldn't just trespassing and taking stuff.
It's and not knowing this is an advertisement, like it was crazy how self-aware they seem to become.
Sure.
But as an advertisement, it might seem a little more crass. Oh, I can have my own Jack. It is not said especially like that. They're very interested, and in our minds, you're about to be murdered.
Yeah.
But the thing is, the lead, Lauren Nicole Smith, the actress, she has, I think it's like her left eye she looks totally fine in the beginning. And then the scenes with the old man, it cuts to her and her eye is bloodshot to the point where it looks like she has pink eye.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, huh. And, I'm watching this in very crystal clear HD. And it's like, it is a blood, like she looks like she has conjunctivitis.
Yeah.
And it looks like, it seemed to me like it was one of those things that they tried to shoot her for whatever scenes they shot on that day from more of a side profile.
Oh, wow.
So that you don't see it. But it's like they must have literally said, we have 2 days to shoot these interstitials. And I think they probably shot one on one day and one on another. And I don't exactly know what happened here. I mean, maybe like, touching the Ginger Dead Man is akin to not wiping properly or something, because she's got this like pink eye, and it's really noticeable. If you go back and watch it now, and I'm like, they must not have someone had to have noticed that, or she came to set with her eye completely bloodshot. And it was like, I think on a normal film production, you maybe halt production for a day or two so she can go to the pharmacy and get eye drops and take care of that. I'm not here trying to like be rude or mean to her physical appearance, but it's definitely noticeable. And it's just sort of one of those moments where it's like, yeah, they're really not concerned. This is the showcase for the clips. They're not concerned about these interstitials at all.
I would only argue to say that I like Christmas tableaus and depiction. That set is beautiful. And it is. The whole time I'm like, this guy's too into Christmas to be too terrible. And the project rewarded me for that. Yeah, he was a good dude.
Yeah.
It was not a trap. He was a good guy who was really, really, who, let's be clear, has like a $3,000 Christmas display in his house for himself.
Look at the fucking Macy's window.
Yeah, it looks insane.
It's very brightly lit. And I do want to shout out that actor. That's Tom Fitzgerald, who you may not recognize his face, but he was the villainous character in a couple of the Insidious movies. He's the bride in black in the Insidious movies.
I saw that.
So he's a horror movie guy. I will retract some of my more cynical comments I was going to make, because I feel like you guys have hit on a good point that this is I discovered a lot of horror. There was like some DVD that I bought in a pre-YouTube era that had a bunch of clips of horror movies, like some of them with commentary from Robert Englund, even if he wasn't involved in it. And I discovered a lot of movies through that thing. So like,
you're right. I mean, wrestling had that too. Yeah,
wrestling had that. Yeah,
every match. Here's a highlight of matches throughout a bunch of companies. Yeah, I know, but again, I also see your point too. You know where all these are. If you're not enjoying the interstitial, your mileage may vary. But like,
this is literally a movie that is not for me. We are in the specific scenario in which like this is the movie that is designed to appeal least to me, to somebody who has seen all these movies already and doesn't want to buy the toys and isn't like interested.
Steve, do you have handily written down just what the Tiny Terrors were in succession that they open
Not
up?
off the top of my head. Let's see what I
know.
can
the
do.
first one is Jack Attack.
We got Jack Attack.
It goes into a Demonic Toys clip, and then what I liked about it was that, I mean, I remember seeing the ad beforehand, and I'm not like a coma patient, like, so I know what's coming next. But like, they're, I don't have like Alzheimer's or anything like that, but they the way they set them up, it was always kind of a nice little treat to be like, okay, here's the one they're going to talk about next. And what I will say is like when they introduced Six Shooter, it was like, okay, well, now we're going to get a clip from Puppet Master 3, which is objectively the best of all of the Puppet Master movies.
Yeah.
And I think for someone who never saw it, they might be like, oh, wow, like this is a cool puppet with cool stop motion.
It really is.
And then it's like, oh, wait, he's shooting Nazis? What's happening?
Yeah.
All right, I can give you the full set here. So we got a lot of Puppet Master. We got Blade, Tunneler, Leech Woman, Six Shooter, Torch, all from Puppet Master. We also have Jack Attack, as we mentioned. We have Evil Bong. We have Ginger Dead Man. We have Baby Oopsie, and we have Radu.
Okay,
so
and so
that's
our
lineup.
Leech Woman 2 and Torch, we get some cool clips from Puppet Master 2. And then we get, I think when they do the totem, we get like a Puppet Master 4 clip.
Oh, that's right. There's a totem as well. Yeah, I forgot.
Yeah, and so that was
like the puppet is hovering over his face at the end of the clip. That was awesome.
Yeah, that's Puppet Master 4 and 5. I think is the only time that character ever appeared. So
cool.
yeah. No, so there's some stuff. Yeah. I will give it credit for that.
You want to know the biggest? Oh, sorry, Chris. Go ahead. Was your
only question for you guys? The Toonie Terrors line has been out for a few years. There's several series deep into that. They're shockingly available at Walmart, which feels bizarre in 2024. I can get a Puppet Master figure in 2024 to Walmart. I don't barely carry movies, but do you think this was something they were asked to do, or were so excited to have a merchandise line they may have like, we will just do this? Like, because I don't know how much money they make for sales. I imagine there's a licensing fee. So
I think they do okay. Well, because I think a lot of the motivation, and if we ever have Charles Band on the show, I really want to ask him about it and confirm this, because and he's spoken a little bit about it. A lot of his motivation for putting so many Tiny Terrors in his movies ever since like the Puppet Master days is because those are hugely merchandisable. They're already action figure sized, so it's pretty easy to like transfer them over. I do think he also is just like afraid of little tiny things like scampering around. There's some kind of primal thing that he is actually afraid of with that. But there is a marketing element of it. So them selling toy figurines of these figures is not surprising to me in the least. And it feels like I'm honestly surprised there haven't been more of these figures out there from like back in the heyday in the early 90s.
There's one fatal flaw this movie has, though, which is that it's picking clips for these things, and it has Radu, and it shows a clip from Subspecies 1.
Yeah.
As opposed to picking a clip from Subspecies 2 or 3, which I feel like are just so much stronger in the way that they look, and in terms of like how should I say this, like really purveying like what kind of character Radu is. Because the thing is, I think the thinking is like, well, The subspecies themselves, the tiny terrors, the subspecies, really only factor into the first movie. They come back in that introductory scene in the second movie, and then they're never really seen again because they're not necessary for the story.
Yeah.
But then the clip they focus on, if memory serves me correctly, is really just a Radu clip. So why show a Radu and Michelle clip from the first movie when you have, it's 2022 when they were making this. Even subspecies 5 was in production at the time, or maybe even finished at the time. And it was like, why show one from that? I felt like they felt beholden to show a clip from the original.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate because they could have showed a really cool clip from Subspecies 2, which, like Puppet Master 3, is one of the objectively best full moon movies of all time.
Yeah.
I was a little bummed that when we got to Radu, we only got that.
You get a better sense of the character in the first movie. I have no idea what the motivation is behind these clips. Maybe just diversity. Who knows? What I find weird, do they charge for this? Because it does become a little more cynical when the idea that, are you paying a full price? I was Googling images of it and it showed up on Apple TV. Why don't I just click on that, see how much does it cost on Apple TV? Because for us it was free. Prime Video. Oh, come on. I can't tell.
I watched it on the Full Moon app, which I pay $5 or whatever a month for.
Yeah, something like that.
Thoroughly acceptable on a free with ads Tubi. And my big complaint with Tubi has always been that's too many ads for the same things over and over again.
Have you met Pluto TV?
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, or Philo. Yeah.
I mean, if you don't know 30-20-10, I watch a lot of movies, and that is my chief complaint. You are not allowed to make an hour-and-a-half movie almost 3 hours because you're not airing on cable and you don't have a schedule to adhere to. That is cruel. It is a really shitty way to watch a movie.
It's really frustrating. We encounter that quite a bit. Well, I think we should move on to talk about our next film, because we have another one that is we didn't really even plan this. It was kind of tossed off. And it's this is weirdly appropriate companion piece for this movie, not just because the character appears in both, but we also have the same production team. We're talking about Demonic Toys Jack Attack. This was released September 1st, 2023. It's written and directed by Billy Butler once again, and it stars Sophia Castellanos, Mabel Thomas, Taylor Abigail Rice, Sean Ramsey, Maddie Small, Christine Brunner, Camera Cole, and Donna Steele. So we've talked about many different facets of the Demonic Toys universe. We've covered 1 and 2. We've covered Dollman versus Demonic Toys. And now we're getting into the first of 2 spin-off series. The other one is going to be the Baby Oopsie trilogy, which I am already dreading. If you listen to this show at all, you know that I deeply loathe Baby Oopsie and everything about him. But you know what? Jack Attack is my favorite of the Demonic Toys. So I was kind of on board for this spin-off in particular. And I'm going to say right from the get-go, off to a stronger start than any other Demonic Toys since the first one. I think the first one has the most striking opening sequence, and then this one after that has the most striking.
I watched that again after I watched this. We're cops and we're undercover. We're also dating, live together, and pregnant.
A lot of exposition in that first opening.
This is the most far-fetched thing in a movie filled with toys that kill people.
It's to sit and have conversations about who exactly they are and what their history is. Yeah, but they've got that cool dream sequence in the first movie, and they've got some interesting visuals. And I think starting this one in media res with a girl already mid-attack and introducing both Jack Attack and this weird new clown minion that he's got, who I think is very Terrifier-esque and very creepy.
Guys, I have so many questions because it was seeming that clown is new, because otherwise
he's new.
I feel like I had to see 16 movies before I got here, because this character Lily, did I watch her survive something? It's just jumping in right in the middle. These are all new characters. This is a new, and truly even though we've seen many Demonic Toys movies at this point, Jack Attack has never been a particularly well defined character. For whatever reason, seeing him on the VHS box, I always thought he was going to be the main antagonist. He's the face of the series. And really it's Baby Oopsie. And that's kind of the big problem with it. But she's the loudest.
Yeah, but Jack Attack, it's a cool, creepy design. It's just kind of like a half snake, half Jack in the Box clown monster who he doesn't really talk, although he makes some kind of like lusty grunts a couple times in this movie.
But he has his clown Krang who can carry him around.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. He's got a Krang. Yeah, he's got like a big.
Oscar the Grouches who used to carry him around. It's a very good, cool puppet.
Oh yeah.
So Steve, I want you to anticipate having to pick your jaw up off the floor when I say this.
Okay.
I also wish this movie were slightly longer.
I think this one could support it. Yeah.
Because I had fun with this one. I liked it more than I think I was anticipating. And again, there are flaws. And as we discuss the movie, there's going to be stuff we're going to bring up that doesn't quite work. But I think its pacing is both its best friend and its worst enemy at the same time, because it is great to have a movie that's so briskly paced the way this one is to start. But then as it starts to introduce kind of like new themes to it, they happen so fast and events start happening with no real pretense. And it's kind of like, wait, what? Like this is a 59-minute movie, 70 minutes. Make this thing 70 minutes. I won't feel like I'm really wasting any more of my day watching this than I did, but 70 minutes. That's what I would have liked this one to have been.
Another question I have, is it common to Full Moon to put out a 1-hour movie? Like,
increasingly, yes. I think the newest iteration of Full Moon, we're getting a lot of movies that are either like re-edited attempts at web series, so like Trophy Heads would be a good example of that.
That's what I was wondering, is this supposed to fit a different kind of format? Do these air in other places? I don't have cable or anything like that. I don't have the Full Moon app.
It could have.
Yeah, the streaming app is kind of the primary place where they are hawking their new stuff. But I think they
appreciate an hour. I think that's great.
Oh yeah.
Like,
well, I think they're leaning into
Showtime
that.
and Twilight Zone are the only people who like attempted an hour-long horror movie. I'm for it.
It seems everything, particularly in the latter-day Full Moon, and even coupling in the newest iteration, the Pulp Noir, which we haven't touched any of those like brand new movies that have come out this year. They all kind of fall in like the 72 to 75-minute mark.
Yeah. Charles Band always says that a movie over 90 minutes is wasting your time. And I think he's really kind of taken that to heart. And I appreciate that they're kind of recognizing the limits of what this premise can maybe cover. Like, I agree it could stand to be a little longer because it does take a bit for things to actually start ramping up. And we don't really get any time with the titular character until just like maybe the back like quarter of the movie, So, you want to see more of that design. They've got some like surprisingly pretty gnarly kills in this movie, which I appreciated. Like Full Moon does not really go that hard on the gore, but I think there is a big Terrifier influence in this movie. This was shot in 2023. Terrifier 2 had already kind of proven that this was going to be sort of a crossover like cult phenomenon, which was even bolstered even further this year.
What I thought was fun is because Terrifier got people talking about practical gore effects again in a way that no movie has bothered to do in a while. And then when I was searching for this, Tubi knows to put Terrifier in that search. So for people looking for Terrifier, they're going to come across something maybe like Jack Attack, and it's in their best interest that the vibes be similar.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely helps. And I think that's what they're going for, both with the increased gore and just the clown design.
I don't know how cable works in this day and age, but like if you want your movie seen on these services, you want them to pop up similar to when they're done. So that's in your best interest.
Well, that's another one of the, as a slight digression, that's just one of the smartest things that the Terrifier franchise has done, is that those movies are available. You can find them. They're free. If you're curious about it, you can watch it, and they're not really going to charge you for it unless you want to pay for it. So it was a smart thing that they did, and it kind of helped build up their word of mouth.
Yeah, just All Hallows Eve this year shot to the top of the horror section, every streaming service I have. It's like on every one of them because they can put art on it.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a bad idea, and I think they're definitely riffing on that a little bit. And there is kind of a Blumhouse sort of structure to this movie in a way I can't quite put my finger on, but I think something about the starting in the middle of the action and then having like a traumatized child at the center of it who you don't know if you can fully like trust.
No, Steve. You know what it is? It's the CGI chickens.
The CGI chickens, that's what did it. Yeah, that's what did it. That's what did it.
I don't like pointing out flaws, but I love, like, I know you really love this drone, but try not to shoot its shadow.
Right,
Like,
right.
Try and keep that out of the shot.
So that was something I noticed a lot of times too, and the way that they were kind of controlling some of these outdoor drone shots too. It was very like they would cut to kind of a drone shot outside of the exterior of this farmhouse, and it couldn't help in those moments but look like they were like it was B-roll from like an HGTV house flipping show.
Yeah. Or Netflix murder series where those things are drone porn, man. Like they love their drone shots, filling in B-roll.
No, yeah, they just kept showing this farmhouse, and I was just expecting like Chip and Joanna Gaines to walk out of it.
Can't say their name in Texas too many times. You'll summon them.
And this is neither here nor there. On 30/20/10 this year, we like recently we got to mention the 30th anniversary of Incredibles, and one of the things we highlighted is like it has one of the most incredible DVDs back when that was a thing. Not only does it have a Clutch Cargo version of the Incredibles family, like a cartoon series that aired within the universe. They have commentary from Sam Jackson and Craig T. Nelson in character talking about how shitty their cartoon is. There's what the baby was doing. It's called
The Baby Looked at You.
No, the baby. It's why I sort of didn't love Incredibles 2, because they rehashed something that was a short film on the DVD, and that is called Jack Attack.
Yeah,
so I had watched Jack Attack and both Jack Attacks very close
full
to
circle.
another. And then to make this even dumber and more insular, I am kind of like I don't want to see any Christmas stuff until after Halloween. So I watched this movie before Halloween. I watched 12 Sleighs. October 31st, 1201.
Yeah.
It was my first Christmas.
Which was only a few hours ago.
Yeah,
there we go.
My first Christmas experience. Not mad about it at all. I was very happy to do it.
Well, yeah. All right. Well, I'm glad. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I'm glad that these wound up being fairly thematically similar too. You know, I mean, it's
a real happy accident.
It is a weird kind of oversight on Charles Band's part that he hasn't exploited the Christmas holiday more, because it is just a cash cow. And I would say fully 80% of the directors that we have covered on this show have transitioned over into the Hallmark world, you know, whether it's an actual Hallmark or it's like knockoff Hallmark. Yeah, almost everybody who's making like a Full Moon or an Empire movie is now making one of those Hallmark movies, because they know how to work cheap and fast.
I was going to ask you that. I was like, I wonder if I should ask him about that. And then I watched Demonic Toys and like, written by David Goyer. Right. Okay. So this is like the Corman of the 90s.
Yeah, that was I think that was the first Goyer script. Yeah.
It is.
Absolutely.
Batman Blade scribe, David S. Goyer.
Yeah. We there's somebody else who we covered who wound up being like one of the biggest screenwriters in Hollywood or something like that.
Yeah, we have to be looking at the most efficient crews.
Oh yeah, there's a guy in Cellar Dweller who is now the president of Paramount.
What?
Yeah, he's the main actor in Cellar Dweller. He went on to he was the head of like Nickelodeon kids development in the 90s. He directed Wild Hogs and Norbit and movies like that, and then he became president of Paramount Pictures. And no, he's not Old Dogs, but he's a lot of like really bad movies that were inexplicably profitable.
But
it's Brian Robbins, and he was also a cast member on Head of the Class.
That's it. Yeah, with Dan Schneider. Yeah. They were old buddies. Wow. So I'm not going to throw any accusations out there.
In that sense, I want to give a big shout out to Mabel Thomas. Is that the actress's name? That our lead, or Lily, doesn't talk, so a lot of the talking has to be done by. I both like the framing device of Child Protective Services. And I mean this in a non-lecherous way. I thought this is one of the prettiest ladies I've ever seen, and I haven't watched a lot of as many Full Moon movies as you have. And she's fucking great.
These are good performances in this movie.
I thought she was great.
Like, she's like not just by like Full Moon standards. These are good.
She's like
which I call Big Shivroy energy.
Big Shivroy energy.
Yes.
He does.
This is your Emma Stone-esque. I thought she was awesome. I hope to see.
I also appreciate somebody under the age of 90 with the first name Mabel.
Yeah,
Oh
me.
yeah, you gotta love it. It's coming back. I mean, and to shout out Billy Butler, who directed both of these movies. We've mentioned him many times before, but just to reiterate, he is kind of one of the most important guys working at Full Moon right now,
Absolutely.
and he's one of those dudes who has just been on every side of genre filmmaking. I think he's one of the stars of Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, and then he's directed a bunch of movies for us. He's written a bunch of movies.
His IMDb says he's one of the only living actor, and it said consecutively. I don't know what that means, to be killed by Jason Voorhees, Freddy Krueger, Night of the Living Dead zombie, and one
Leatherface, yeah.
Leatherface. And I'm like, I cannot fall down this rabbit hole right now. This guy's IMDb is already too interesting. What do you mean? Because he doesn't look old.
He's also in that one scene in Spellcaster when him and his friend blow up in the car for no reason.
Yeah.
Oh, right, yeah.
Because you look at his IMDb and like, wow, I missed a lot of Full Moon features because this dude has been on the directing side or production team of every single one of them.
But he's a heavy hitter for this era, later stages Full Moon. He's so involved in seemingly everything, which is not a surprise to have a 2022 and 2023 movie and have them both be directed by Bill Butler with also the same kind of production crew.
I feel like if there ever was kind of a passing of the torch moment of somebody else who's going to keep Full Moon alive after Charles Band decides to hang it up, I feel like it would be Billy Butler. That'd be my guess, but he's just kind of in that inner circle.
I don't want to prolong the show. I've listened to the show before, but like, does Band talk that much nowadays? Is he?
Yeah, he's around. He's still out there. If you haven't read his autobiography, we talk about it in almost every episode, and it's fantastic. It's called Confessions of a Puppet Master, and it's a very light, very breezy 200-page read that you can knock out in an afternoon. Very fun. Lots of great stories.
I don't know if this has been substantiated yet, but I heard that he's working on a second autobiography.
It felt like there was more. Yeah, I feel like there's a lot more that he can be digging into, and he's in this kind of interesting new phase of his career where like some of his new movies are getting a little of that viral traction that movies back in the day did. Sometimes it's not necessarily for good reasons, but like Corona Zombies was getting headlines because he made it a month into the pandemic being announced. You know, people were still squabbling over toilet paper and he was shooting the movie. Like,
I'm still like wiping my groceries with Clorox wipes.
100%. Like, and he's cranking them out. And then he's got movies this year, like with buzzy titles. You know, he's making a Barbenheimer movie. He made Bad CGI Gator and Bad CGI Shark, you know, like where they're showing a self-referential kind of winkiness about their properties that I think is maybe not a new Full Moon renaissance, but I feel like when we were talking about the branding, like when Full Moon started in the early 80s, early 90s, it was really well branded, really consistent. You knew what a Full Moon movie was. Then it kind of got into the wilderness period after the Paramount deal ended. And it's only kind of recently with the launching of the Full Moon streaming app that it feels like they've sort of found their brand consistency again, you know, and they're starting to own some of those weird movies that are in that in-between wilderness period. You know, and so their brand is kind of tightening up a little bit. Yeah. And that's always been what Charles Band has been very good at doing. Yeah.
Casting a wide net. Holy shit.
Casting a whole wide ass net. But I think it sounds like we have surprising at least minor recommendations for both 12 Slays of Christmas and Jack Attack. Right? I did enjoy Jack Attack quite a bit, actually. I'm gonna wager it is my favorite Demonic Toys movie so far.
Man,
it's a low bar, but yeah.
So my favorite is Baby Oopsie, and I'm in this and kind of scrolling around IMDb. I'm like, what after a Baby Oopsie trilogy, what the fuck are we doing? What with this Jack Attack? And I have no real complaints about the movie. I love Baby Oopsie.
Oh, see, it always grated on me, and there's three of those movies. I think they're all like 45 minutes to an hour long.
Going full Kruger in that first movie, and maybe you didn't want to hear pop songs of the 1930s. No-si-do and little hands that die. It's so weird, and it's been in my head for years.
Yeah. When the first Demonic Toys episode we did pretty early in the show's run, and I think we were pretty nitpicky. I think we came down pretty negative on a lot of stuff, and it's one of the few movies that we did where it's not like I want to go back and change my stance on the movie, but I definitely found myself thinking about it a lot. And in hindsight, I'm like, you know what? this aspect of it was kind of cool. This I liked. I liked this part. We really kind of fixated on the stuff in the movie which didn't work, which there's plenty in the movie that doesn't work.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
it's definitely grown in my estimation since we watched it the first time for the show. And I'm thinking like it might be a movie that I may, push comes to shove, I might choose that over this one. But so far, I mean, when we're talking like when when the other choices are Demonic Toys 2 or Doll Man versus Demonic Toys, it's like
Ooh.
this one clearly is much more competent in a lot of ways.
To say only a little bit about Demonic Toys, because this drove me back into it after a long time of just that. Yeah, I remember watching this all the time as a kid. It never occurred to me this was not quadruple A cinema at any point. Like there was, I didn't see any strings. Like I just thought this was awesome at 12, 13 years old. Nothing about it struck me as formulaic or weird, or that they were doing things to constrain the budget. I just was enamored with it. And I don't know, I give them a lot of credit for that, because that must have been a really, really, really tightrope to walk. The home video era just seems so, even crazier than making a theatrical movie. How do you know? How do you know if this is going to see a return, especially when you get these receipts so far afterwards?
Well, you come up with a movie title, you come up with a poster, and then you hope and pray that it. You know, I will say, like, for a movie that, and that's the other thing too, is like Demonic Toys is a low budget movie. This movie is like a micro budget movie. And I mean, and even a low budget movie shot on film is almost always going to look better than a micro budget movie shot digitally.
Yeah.
Because even though things might be clearer, there's just, I think you miss something a little bit in the film grain that makes it feel like a real movie. Like this kind of gets into like what's starting to look like something made for television at times. But I will say, like, for how low the budget probably was, I'm at least happy that in this movie the budget is on screen for some of the gore stuff. You know, it's not still some of it is still edited cleverly so that it's not really the focal point of stuff on screen, but they do go for it in a way that I feel like some of the movies of this time, full moon movies of this time, wouldn't. And
I think Jack growing feet is like Captain America grabbing Thor's hammer. That was completely unexpected. I don't know if that was established that he can do that, or they can do that. I should not gender Jack. But yeah, I have it made me very confused about how many of these I missed and what lore is in place. But it does pick up on a very Nightmare on Elm Street 5 vibe, which was my first. Like, this character is crazy now and pregnant.
Yeah, and you also have like Jack. I mean, the scene where Jack Attack just like pushes himself through the stomach of the foster mother. I was like, that's pretty good. Like they went there on that one.
In the movie.
I like that. Like, an anvil didn't just fall on the girl's head; it took off her face. Like,
and who doesn't want to see an influencer killed?
It's a great little twist, you know. And then of course she gets racking up all the likes now because she's now squirting blood everywhere, you know.
Yeah, that bit worked for me.
Hashtag commentary. Yeah.
And I thought that whoever played that, she was perfect. She was, I mean, she was perfect. Having to have been in an always on area of my life of new media, like this is not an easy role to play.
No.
I did. Yeah, I did. I'm so happy you guys asked me to do the show just so I could watch this.
Well, we're happy that we finally got you on. This has been a lot of fun to talk about. We're going to need to get you on again for sure. Unfortunately, no more Christmas movies. I think this is it. We've exhausted the Christmas canon to date, but we'll get back around to something.
But all I will say is, Chris, if you have a fondness for Christmas time. If you haven't seen it yet, go watch Trancers.
Yeah, Trancers is a great Christmas movie. Yeah,
it's really weird. I liked Black Christmas, right? And I remember I saw Krampus and like, this is fun once. I don't like mixing certain things. Like I don't want movie parodies in my pornography because I do not want to get turned on by the things that I like to watch outside of porn. And I don't like a lot of murder in Christmas. I just don't like, that's not what I'm here for. And this was separate. I don't know. I still had a great time with this. Is Trancers a Christmas set film?
It is. It's a kind of, it's more of a sci-fi comedy, but it's an LA Christmas movie too, which is great.
Ooh.
So you get very young Helen Hunt wearing a Santa's helper outfit, and a Santa Claus gets stabbed. So it's fun.
No one has ever said this in the history of podcasting. You had me at Helen Hunt.
Hey, look, we had us at Helen Hunt. She turned up for three of those
We've
movies.
said
She's
that
awesome.
in the history of podcasting.
I am mad about watching this now. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Chris, for being here today. You have 100 million podcasts. You're one of the voices I've heard in my head the most, and I mean that as a compliment. Between 30 2010, which I have been a day one listener of. I've never missed an episode of 30 2010 because it's just how I process my brain, and you guys found a way to unlock that.
Right. So. And I'm really stupid for not doing this when you brought the show up, Chris, and when I mentioned it in the intro. But really quickly, when you tell everyone where they can find you and all that stuff, just tell our listeners who might not be familiar what the premise of 30 2010 is, because I feel like it's such a fun, I don't want to use the word gimmick, it makes it sound negative, but like it's such a fun premise for a show that I'm sure would appeal to a lot of people who enjoy listening to us.
Yeah, like I have talked maybe more about horror movies with Steve and Jared than like any other human in the last couple of years.
Possibly.
And
yeah.
I was always like, when you told me the idea of the show, and like, that is just a fucking great idea. I would love to be on the show. And then I started looking at the guests you got, and like, these are really good guests who are experts. Oh my God, I don't have a lot to offer here. If you need a fill in, I was like, yeah, if somebody cancels, call me. I'll jump on, because like I cannot offer the amount of expertise that many of your guests have given you. But 30 2010 is kind of the perfect format, and it's a bad pitch saying it's like it may more resemble a conversation you might have with a group of friends if you're fortunate enough to have a group of friends to talk about movies with. I know a lot of us aren't, especially post-pandemic, post-adulthood. But that, like, it's about what came out 30, 20, and 10 years ago. We don't get to define the format. We don't get to go too in depth, except on occasion where there's an Ed Wood or a Forrest Gump recently where we do, about the movies that come out. It's just interesting to see the world as it came out, because if you're like me, and I think you both are, I didn't keep a calendar like the Brett Kavanaugh about what I did every day in my teens and 20s. I can remember where I was, who I was dating, by what movies I was watching and what TV shows I was watching, what video games I was playing, what was new, and what I was excited about across 3 years. And then when you look at all those 3 decades together, you can both see how far we've come as a culture or how far we haven't.
Right.
There's a peace agreement, Palestine and Israel 30 years ago. What happened? That is the most interesting thing about it. We do very little.
More importantly, Crash Bandicoot is out.
we do very little politics, but as JR keeps pointing out, 1994 is like the early 90s is like the Berlin Wall is falling, apartheid is ending, and like the world looks endless, like an ocean of good forever. And then you jump ahead 2014, like, Jesus, Robin Williams killed himself. Fuck, the world is so much more awful and different. But movie wise, we get to talk a little about every movie that comes out during that period. And probably you guys would hate us because we try and stick to theatrical releases. So Charles Band doesn't get in there very often.
Yeah, he doesn't. He doesn't have too many anymore. Not since the 80s. But
and Video Game Apocalypse, which Steve has been on, where we look at, it's like a video game magazine show where you do kind of a magazine top 5-ish feature in addition to more topical news and new releases. It is too big and too professional for. It just needs to be. I don't know why the guys work so hard on it, but I do like the results every week.
It's a fantastic show. It's so fun to do. And then, you've got your old Laser Time episodes, and you've got Elm Street Nightmare on the Patreon, which we've been part of several different horror series. Like you're busting them out all the time. So
well, I mean, my partner JR deserves a ton of credit for that, because I love how he's super motivated to do that. I hate asking anyone to do anything, but I'm always down to that format. Watching things in a row and talking about them immediately has given me a much deeper appreciation for even my least favorite horror movies. So it's interesting to do this. I think it helps you appreciate movies on a little better level. And I love that you guys have just decided to make unappreciated movies the cornerstone of what you talk about.
It sure is. And I'm not against asking anybody to do anything. So I would say definitely check out 30-20-10. And if you like what we do, then please jump onto Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Drop us a little 5-star rating, maybe a brief review if you feel so inclined to do so. If you want to follow the show on social media, we are on Instagram and Threads, and maybe we'll start some Blue Sky posts again, and on YouTube. But you can find us on Instagram at puppetmasters_Castle Freaks. You can follow me at _Giallo_Jared and Steve at Minotaur Matador.
Great follows.
Yeah, just follow us and keep up with the show. And you can also listen to the show on YouTube if you enjoy consuming audio podcasts that way. But we are not the only show that Steve wants to plug. Steve, what else have you got going on?
Well, I also have a show called Cinema Arcade, and that's where we watch a movie and play the video game based on that movie. As of this recording, I have no idea where we're at, but right now when we're recording this, we just finished up our whole month of spooky movies. So we've got those out there. The Quiet Place game is surprisingly very good. I enjoyed it a lot. And now, God help us, we are in the middle of the Cars trilogy. So send help for me, please.
Did you discover, as I did, 18 minutes of Cars 2 video game footage is the most viewed video game footage on the internet, or it was?
Is that true?
20 years. Yeah, because for little kids looking for Cars clips, it's the longest car clip because they don't know the difference between this is a game and this is not the movie Cars 2 that I can't see.
Yeah.
So it's got like hundreds of millions of views, 18 uncut minutes of Cars 2 for the Xbox 360.
That's crazy. That might be the way to go. I'm discovering I don't like these movies, but I'm enjoying all of these video games. So go figure. They're all very well done video games.
Yeah, critics are harsh on them, but they're wonderfully serviceable, aren't they?
But be sure to check us out next week, because we are going to be closing out 2024 with an absolutely massive film, a movie we have been dying to talk about for a long time. And I know a lot of people have been dying to talk about for 30, 40 years, something like that, because we're going to be talking about The Primevals, Dave Allen's film that his passion project that he died before completing. The torch has been picked up. It is finally, after years and years and years of progress, it is finished. It is available to watch, and we are going to watch it. It's an entire movie of Dave Allen stop motion. I am so excited to finally check this thing out. It's been gestating for longer almost than we've been alive. So I'm really excited to see what came of it. So check us out next week for The Primevals.
I'll be there.
And a very Merry Christmas or Happy Holidays, whatever you celebrate. Happy sleighs. I hope you all have a wonderful sleighs of Christmas.
I can walk, I can talk, I can even shit my pants. Can you shit your pants?
I mean, I like this character. It's so good.